Welcome to another edition of Driven to Lead. I'm your host, Wayne Brannon. In this program, we explore the real stories from key executives to find the leadership lessons that drove their success, whether in good times or bad. We got a great program for you today, so let's make it happen. Very happy to have with us today Curtis Collar, CEO of Nanotech Energy out of Commerce, Michigan, not too far from where I grew up. Curtis is a chemical engineer by training, and he's delivered consistent growth over all types of innovative businesses over the years. And he's done that by understanding the customer, the competitive environment, and the complexity that is necessary to drive business forward. And been very impressed with how he's built relationships, and that those have built long-standing partnerships that have driven Curtis to higher and higher levels of success. So Curtis, we're great to have you on the program today.
Wayne, thanks for having me. Appreciate you taking the time and reaching out and setting up and showing interest in what we're doing in Nanotech.
Yeah, as I've said before in the program, we're very lucky to have a diverse set of businesses that we touch by talking to key executives like yourself. And Nanotech Energy is an especially interesting one in this battery and energy arena. There's so many technologies out there, so much that's been talked about. I get the feeling that maybe there's more kind of energy around the discussion than there is really energy around the delivery of real solutions. Tell us about what Nanotech Energy does and why you're a solid player in this space.
Yeah, so Nanotech Energy is the first U.S. battery company with an actual facility manufacturing cells in the States. As one of the American battery startups, next gen battery technology companies. And I want to emphasize that we have a facility that can produce hundreds of thousands, millions of cells today, producing cells in California. And it has not been easy. It's been really hard to get it up and running. And there's a lot of companies out there that have made promises, made claims, and have tried to get factories up and running and realize how hard it is. And, really what Nanotech has done that set ourselves apart is we've been really pragmatic in our approach. Instead of, building a gigafactory, instead of saying, hey, we're going to just put up this massive line, we took it really a step-by-step approach. We built an R&D facility and we spent time developing customers, right? Instead of forcing a cell into the market that was the highest energy density, the fastest charging, we said, what does the customer need? Where's the fit in the market that needs a new product, right? What's not being met by the current suppliers, right? We approached the battery business as a business instead of as a fundraising venture capital. Where does my next venture dollar come from? Now, that's definitely hurt us at times in the fundraising effort. But on the customer front, what we've built is an organization that is really laser focused on giving customers what they need, customer-centric delivery. And really what we've built is a team where a customer can come to us today and say, hey, I have a problem. I have an application. I need something that does this, and there's nothing that does this today. And my team can get with that customer and come up with a solution, give them their options, work with them. We can prototype, we can develop, and we can put into production a new product for them. And we can do that in a matter of months, not years, months. And today that is the differentiating factor along with the technologies we have. But that is the differentiating factor that is missing in this industry entirely. And Nanotech has it today, and it's there, and it's ready, and I'm couldn't be more proud of the team that we put together and what we've delivered.
So that's really an important story because what you're saying really is you're the only, or one, maybe one of few, but I think I heard you say you're the only US battery production company that actually is putting product into physical applications. You're producing them now, you're delivering to customers, right?
Correct.
And I think we have this vision that here in the States we're doing more and more of this, but so much of it is outsourced. Is that true also of some of the Korean and the Chinese companies who are actually transplanting here and building battery factories? Are they not putting product on the road from those factories yet either?
No, they absolutely are putting batteries on the product on the road, but what they're putting product on the road for is the high volume applications, right? They're putting product out there that is, this is what we have, go use it,
I see. Okay.
right? So really EV and energy storage centric because they own those markets, right? You want those
Mhm.
products, those are the products. They make plenty of money. They do it really, really well, and they have really good products. So, you know, starting a new company, it's really hard to go and compete where there's already really great suppliers like the Koreans and the Chinese in those sectors. So those businesses are established. They're going well. You know, Panasonic's got Tesla. It's a great partnership. They've demonstrated they can make cells in the States. They do a great job. I think AESC is doing a great job with the energy storage market for with Fluence and with a few others that they've got going. So, I think that they're finding their niches and they're coming in and obviously there's global trade tensions there, but um, the big side of the sector is set up. Now, the difficulty with those is there's no opening for innovation, right? There's no next gen. There's no opening for an American controlled, uh, domestic controlled entity, right? So it's really hard to still trust those sources. It's not going to be the next gen battery tech we need. It's not the cells our defense organizations need, right? Our warfighters need.
Mhm.
It's not the cells that our, innovators need, right? Our data centers, our next gen electronics companies need, right? It's the cells that are available are the cells that are mass volume and really good for high volume, low price applications. That's what's available, and most of it captive and most of it spoken for. But those companies are doing a good job.
I really love the way you explained that because I wanted the audience to really understand what you were saying, and I think that really kind of puts a real point on it. It's that you can build bespoke applications, you design, you collaborate, you integrate, and you produce, as you said earlier, in a matter of months these solutions that are needed. And I expect that, uh, just from a US point of view, US centric point of view, there are some applications that need to be done here and controlled by American companies. And you're a solution that exists in a unique way here to do that. And I think that is really a critical place for nanotech energy to be. And so I was impressed when we spoke earlier about that. So I wanted that to come through so the
Mhm.
audience understands. And if you think about that, are you really advancing technology simultaneously within the execution of the kind of customized, custom tailored solutions, so that you'll see an expansion of the capabilities that you're going to be putting on the road, so to speak, in various applications? Or is it mostly taking existing battery technologies and then executing it in a custom way for the application?
So we're absolutely focused on advancing new tech. So let me explain a little bit more there. It's really hard to put new tech into a large volume application, right? So you can't really go from this really great new technology and put it into an automotive application. It's too much risk, right? You
Mhm.
can't, that recall is just scary, right? And an OEM to make that bet that I am going to put this new cell technology in, it's going to be great, it's going to work fine. And yeah, I've tested it for 6 months in my lab, it looks good. No, No, they're going to test it for years and years to make sure it's good. And even at that, they're going to put it into a subsegment of a subsegment. It's a long, long road to get it into automotive. It's just too much risk to try to put a new tech in, right? So it's the wrong place to start a new technology company is into automotive or energy storage and the wrong value prop, frankly. So, our philosophy was a bit different. Nanotech was born out of UCLA, and UCLA is a phenomenal university when it comes to innovation and the things they've done. And we keep a lab at the university where we continue to incubate new technologies. So we really are founded off of the graphene that came out of the university, and we still are innovating with that graphene, putting it in the cells in different ways. We have a number of different technologies that are going to continue to push cell technology further, step by
Mhm.
step, one foot in front of the other in the nanotech way. Um, and then we have electrolyte technologies and other things that are coming out of that university. Um, and we put those in the cells when it makes sense to put it in a cell, when we can scale it in a cell, right? When it meets the customer's need, right? When they need it in that product. Now, furthermore, I don't limit it to the technologies we develop, but we open source our platform because what Nanotech's really built is an infrastructure that is missing in the entire value chain on how do we go after applications where you can actually scale new technology. Again, I just said, my philosophy and Nanotech's philosophy is we cannot scale in those large, massive applications. It's a mistake. So what we built is instead of putting our capital in a gigafactory, we put our capital into a flexible production validation center. So our R&D facility does 100 cells a day, different cell every day. If I want to run 2 shifts, I can do 2 cells a day.
Mm.
And that means I can iterate a different cell every day. I can do 2 different cells every day, whatever's required for those customer programs coming through. And then I can take it over to my validation production facility and I can run 2,000 cells a day, 10,000 cells a day, 30,000 cells a day if we need to, as we go through the needs and the maturation of the program. And ultimately with the goal being to deliver enough production to those customers of those cells that they can put those cells all the way through all the UL testing requirements, all of the early certification requirements, even the early production requirements, even the long-term production requirements if it's a specialized product, so that we can put these new technologies in the market, get field proof that they work, get them proven in the long term so that we can adopt them into these harder applications like automotive and de-risk them for those harder applications.
Mhm.
So, you know, now that we've built that infrastructure and we've put our blood, sweat, and tears into building this infrastructure, and we've trained the team, they understand their mission and they're good at it. They know what they're doing and they can hit it every time now. I mean, we had a lot of stops and starts in learning how to do this, but now that team, we give them a task, they get it almost right at the first time every time, which is pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
So it's an impressive group we put together and a lot of hard work to be able to create this thing. But this platform is really what we look at as not just enabling nanotech's technology, but we want to enable the entire American value stream because the fundamental problem with the American value stream and the battery technology is all of this technology in the battery space was invented here. We invented it in the States. We funded it. None of it's built here. None of it's kept here. All of it was extrapolated, built on top of, and taken from us. We want to bring it
That's
back. We want that
that.
innovation to stay here.
Yeah, that's a good reason to feel strongly about making a change and kind of correcting
That's
that
right.
situation. So I really respect your point of view here. It was interesting. I was just going to ask the question of why you feel so strongly about this, and you answered it before I got to the question, and I really appreciate that point of view. Was there something else in your own background, your personal kind of run through life here that kind of developed this level of patriotism that I hear coming through the way you're discussing these business issues?
So I started my career as a chemical engineer, and um, I think in the early 2000s, and I came into the industry, and what I saw was this, I guess it was right in the heart or maybe the tail end of this flux of, hey, get your manufacturing offshore, right? And I was just seeing the tail end of the um, textile industry leaving the States, and um, and all of the industries that followed that, right? So all of those plants in the South getting shut down, and the um, the solar panel, issue where we had all of the solar panels, they were starting to get built here in the States, and China undercut the price, unfair tactics flooded the market, and put all of the solar panel business um, out of all of that business when all to China, right? They just unfair tactics. I've seen it over and over and over again. And now we're starting to see this need of it's being used against us, right? And that's a problem.
Yeah.
China's playing a long game, and they're really smart, and they could be a great partner, but if we're not willing to partner and they're not willing to partner, then we need to have some basic protections, right? And this is definitely one of those critical spaces, and I can see the writing on the wall from my early career of what happened to how that's going to continue to get levered against us. Um, and the people that affected along the way, right? People losing their job, having to switch in their late careers, right? I saw a lot of really good people get put out of work, or forced into retirement, or struggle in their late 50s and 60s because they were committed to a company and that company was no longer committed to them.
Yeah. I feel like it's really been great getting to understand the subtleties and the importance of the way you're running Nanotech Energy, Curtis. And there's already some leadership lessons in that, but this program is about the key stories from key executives like yourself, maybe from your past. Could be a great failure, could be a great heroic win. Tell us a story about something that we can tease a few leadership lessons out of today.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you kind of where my fundamentals come in, learned kind of middle of my career, which is, you got to know how to fail quick, right? Because failing's okay. You can learn a lot when you fail, and you just don't want to spend years doing it. So, I'll give an example of, this program I was working on. I was at Sabic, and I thought this thing was the greatest idea ever. And this is before I even got into automotive. We were working on a program. I was looking for, I was the application manager. My job was to work with companies that had new things that would enable new uses of plastics. And um, we had found this company that had the best way to make a pipe um, super resilient, right? It can handle all the pressure. It was super light. You could carry it around, and we were going to help these guys manufacture it. We're going to take it over to Saudi Arabia, run it through the desert. This was going to be $1 billion program, and we'd spent all this time developing the idea and the time. And of course, this is early in my career, right? And so we're putting the engineering time, we're putting the resources behind this thing, coming up with the best way to, market this thing and decks and presentations, and how do you assemble these pipes together, and how do we demonstrate it? Who are the customers? We spend months and months and a year on this program, and the engineering time, and several $1 million probably by the time we're all said and done into this thing. And as we go up the organization trying to get approval to acquire this technology, just kind of the response falls on deaf ears. And what I learned from that is you can have the best thing ever, but if nobody wants it internally, right? Even if the business case makes all the sense in the world to you, then you're never going to get anywhere, right? So
Yeah, it's important, critically important, especially when you're working in a complex, multi-tiered organization, right?
yeah, it's a complex multi, but that's no different than the rest of the world.
Yeah, because the rest of the world, to your point, Curtis, the rest of the world's competing for resources as well. I mean, when we go into the marketplace, we're always competing for resources and competing for the customer's attention.
Right.
And inside a company, I just to echo your dilemma there, I had good ideas presented to me all the time when I was running, major activities, running businesses for the companies I worked for. And it was almost impossible for the uh, the presenters of the ideas, whether it was internal to the company or outside, to understand why I turned them down. And sometimes I had to turn them down, not because they didn't have a good idea. It's because I had a whole list of great ideas that were already prioritized, and they were all what I called below the waterline. I could fund the stuff up here, but I couldn't fund any of these. So when someone comes in with yet another idea, and I got 20 or 30 on the not funded yet list, it isn't about trying to be as good an idea as it could be. It could make all the sense in the world, as you said, the business case could perk, blah, 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 right? But then it had to not only do that, it had to be better than all of these ones that were still waiting, right?
Right.
To be
So,
funded.
so,
And that
so,
happens quite a bit.
right. So the learning I took from that was you got to know who your customer is, but your customer's not always who you think it is, right? So understand who your customer is and understand who's making the decision, right? And make sure you have all of the parties at the table who are required to make those decisions, even if they don't necessarily make sense in a linear timeline, you know, work it together, work the relationships, make sure everybody's on the same page and talking before you put the time, energy, and resources in,
Yeah,
right?
that's key.
Otherwise,
Before
you're
you,
wasting that time, you're wasting those millions of dollars, you're wasting all of that effort developing the next great battery, developing the next great whatever it is without, you know, without a means to an end. If you have no means to an end, then you're just, you can develop the best thing since sliced bread. Doesn't matter.
and it's, I guess, for those who might be listening to this program and not have worked in a very large, multifaceted corporation, or even a mid-sized company that, everything has a certain degree of bureaucracy. And I'm not using the word in a negative sense. It's just that there is complexity in the relationships and the responsibilities. There's a diffusion of authority that's appropriate to manage a business in an appropriate way. And there are multiple objectives and multiple product streams that are often competing for resources within a company. And I think to just amplify what you said, I'm hearing that if you don't sell your idea and the commitment to that idea across the organization, you don't really know if competing um, projects, competing ideas are
It,
going to thwart your efforts. And so when you have to do some internal alignment from the bottom up, not just from the top down, in order to be able to understand whether your project's going to have a chance before you start spending a lot of money on it.
not even the organization. It goes beyond an organization. It is this is business development 101. This is with your, now running a company, right? It's
Mhm.
people, the companies we're going to work with, the people we're going to partner with, right?
Mhm.
Just because somebody says, "Hey, I need something that does X," it doesn't mean I'm going to make you something that does X, right? Because I don't just because I make that for you doesn't mean you're going to buy it, right? Because I don't know who's making your decision for you,
Well,
right?
and you may
For
not
that
be
for that customer.
yeah, you may not be deep into their customer research and or their
Or
ability to sell it onward, because if they can't sell it onward, they're not going to buy many from you.
or maybe I need to be with the customer's customer to make that
Exactly.
sale,
Exactly. I
right?
hear you.
So
Mhm.
so that is the lesson I took from that that one thing, right? What, because then the whole team, what you risk is if you have that project that everybody puts their blood, sweat, and tears into, and that fails, you risk demoralizing your team, you risk people leaving, you risk all of that talent and hard work because those people did hard work. Like you risk all of that just going and turning sour inside an organization where if you understand what it takes from the top down for that program to be successful, and again, I'm going to emphasize this goes beyond in one organization. And this is really where I've grown over the last 10 years is, yeah, at the time, 10 years ago, when I was working on this pipe program, it was, it was that organization. And I got frustrated and I hit my head against the ceiling. But looking back on it now, right?
Mm.
And I took all those learnings and I applied it to you need to understand who's making the decision that makes the decision, right? Who's involved in those factors so that there is no, right? So that you don't waste the team's time before you even get started.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a really good lesson and a great learning to take away. Let me just ask a question and point the finger back at you as well, because you said a couple of times when you were working on this project that you were very enthusiastic about it and pushing it ahead and doing everything you could, and that's very reasonable, to have that. Did your level of enthusiasm and your energy that you're putting behind it and trying to, bring other people along with you, did that cause you to potentially take the project a little bit further than it might have gone if you'd have been a little more objective?
Absolutely.
Not
Absolutely.
not trying to point it out, but some of the lessons we
Yeah.
learned, we learned the hard way, right?
Oh yeah, no, this one was pure brute force. I was pushing hard internally. I think even at times people were questioning why I was pushing so hard.
Yeah,
But I have tendency when something makes sense and I don't understand why people don't see it, don't see the obvious and don't want to get on board and go.
yeah.
Um, I have tendency to just keep pushing harder and harder, right? And I've learned that if I'm not getting the response I wanted, there's a reason for that, and that's kind of where this additional maturity has come in the understanding how to uh, better approach setting up a program before we put the resources behind it first is going to lead to more commercial success and more successful teams and more successful team building and more successful business development as we go.
I think there's a great analogy for that lesson somewhere in, kind of the electric vehicle kind of development and implementation and acceptance in the marketplace. For those of us who understand, electric vehicle technology a little bit, I think, we know that, not only is it perhaps a cleaner solution to put on the road, but more importantly, it's great driving dynamics, great torque across all speeds. It's quiet, it's smooth, it's got lots of flexibility, it has more potential for quality, reliability, and even longevity over time. And it has um, really the key elements of integration to the next generation of software controlled driven vehicles and autonomous vehicles and a lot of other things. But all that said, the dogs have to like the dog food. And right now, we probably just pushed a little bit ahead of the innovation curve with the marketplace. And, to your point about a lot of people being passionate and moving ahead, and God bless them, I respect all the people in the auto industry who've pushed really hard and made investments because it's a very difficult thing to when you're in a competitive environment and you see a technology coming and you got to invest early and you got to go hard with it sometimes. But boy, hindsight's always 2020, right? If we would have been a little bit more deliberate and perhaps a little slower with the development innovation, bringing customers along beyond those things that we were going to need to get it to the next level, it would have been a less costly and perhaps less painful kind of exercise to be aligned with the adoption curve a little bit more than we have been so far. So not being critical, but just saying that, sometimes our enthusiasm and understanding where the market needs to go tries to lead the market a little bit. We sometimes have a little bit too much stretch in our innovation profile that we put on the road.
Yeah, and the blessing and the curse of the American public markets, right? Makes a
Mhm.
lot of capital available. Um, but then we get driven to perform by what's going to make the stocks perform. And stocks perform because companies are investing in their battery tech, or we're investing in the battery tech, and they get forced to do, or pressured, forced to make those investments and overinvest, and then the
Mhm.
market changes,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And we have to shift because things don't keep up. If the, and I think that there was a lot of really reasonable voices out there. Um, the standard voices you listen to in the automotive market, we've listened to for years, IHS and a lot of the other, you know, entities that have been around a long time. They kind of told you this is the likely path, and we're on the likely path,
Of
right?
course.
But everybody got so excited because the public markets went nuts and they said, invest, invest, this change is coming. But we're still on the likely path.
Yeah, we are. We're on the likely path. It's just that
So,
some parts of the path haven't been built. You don't
if
want to
we
get there
listen to
before
the
they have.
smart people who are paid to do their jobs,
Right.
instead of the, analysts who get really excited and are paid to hype things up and make the money grow, um, and then pivot. Um,
Yeah, we could probably talk about this for quite a while because you and I were both somewhat close to this in the various things that we've worked on
yeah.
over the years. So no, I really appreciate those leadership lessons there. It's great to be a little bit vulnerable with that, and I appreciate you doing that, Curtis. And I think the great success you've had with Nanotech Energy overall and what you're doing right now is admirable. And sometimes the great things we do comes from some of the difficult lessons we learned. So appreciate it. To wrap up the discussion for today, I'm a creature of habit. I ask the same two questions to all my guests. And the first one really is about if you could go back 20 years, what would you tell your younger self as a key piece of advice after you kind of learned the things you learned up to this point?
I mean, take more risks. I wish I had started at a younger age, pushing myself harder into just building businesses and making things happen.
Mhm.
I came out of school with the mentality that you come out of school, get a degree, you get a job, and you go to work and you make money, and a company's going to take care of you and you're going to do your thing. And, you know, that worked for, I believed that for all of about 3, 4 years out of school. And then I
Right.
saw the reality of the big companies cutting their pensions and people not getting taken care of, and just this whole shift that's happening. And honestly, it scares the crap out of me of what's going to happen to the millennial generation where we don't have, you know, a guaranteed retirement, right? It's not, people don't know how to save
Right.
for their own retirement. It's
Right.
not going to be enough. Whatever you save, it's not going to be enough. It's going to be a scary time. And, you know, we get trained in this thought process of go to work, go get a job. And I think that that's the wrong thought process anymore. I think there's enough tools out there that anybody can go and make it work. You go find a job, you want to make money, teach yourself what you want to know, go do it. Believe in yourself. And I wish I had done more of that early on in my career. I waited until my late 30s to jump ship and and go take a shot at myself. So, um,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very good advice. I think there are a lot of us who are caught up in that. And, even today, if you look at what our education system, even through the university level and graduate levels, they're not really teaching us to be entrepreneurs and to think that way and take risks. I mean, I admire some of the universities who now have entrepreneurial programs, but really, until you get into a higher learning realm, you're not really getting that. And I think you're making a good point. It is available though. So if you have a passion for something and you want to do it, you could have the ability to educate yourself, given the robust access to resources that we have online, and I think that's really important to consider because this going to work for someone else and believing they're going to take care of you from cradle to grave is just not the truth. It's not the reality. When you look at a corporation, I don't think we need to judge them necessarily because they have a prime directive. And that prime directive, especially with a large public entity, is to maximize the shareholders' value. And
Yeah,
sometimes that requires laying off thousands of people.
yeah,
And sometimes that means abandoning an entire business direction or division. It means whatever it means. And it's not that the company is heartless. It's that the company never had a heart in the first place. The company has primarily, it's the objective to maximize the shareholder value. And then within that, many, almost all corporations say that they value their people and they truly mean to do good things. They have
hmm,
a good cultural, vision and mission for the company. The core beliefs and values are those of us as human beings, and they're well intended. But the reality is those don't supersede the financial reality of a business entity. And I think
that's right.
to
It,
believe that a company has heart is really just naive. And
yeah,
similarly, I mean, when you leave, I mean, it's not like if you're in a critical position and you leave for the financial gain, you're just as justified and just as right in your convictions as the company would be to lay you off, or if you weren't adding value to them. So maximizing our value is what we do in the business world. We should do it with integrity. We should do it with all kinds of mutual human respect and shared responsibility. But at the end of the day, that's a hard lesson to learn. But I love the way you stated it. You're not blaming anybody else. You just wish you would realize that you should take more risks earlier and go after being an entrepreneur.
well, I knew what I wanted, right? I
Mhm.
love to build things, right? I love to put things together. I like to put the puzzle pieces in the right place. I like to put the strategies together. I just didn't know what I was capable of because I didn't believe in myself coming out of school. I didn't know enough, right? So if I'm looking
Mhm.
back on my own self, this is just for me.
Mhm.
I go back and tell myself, hey, you can do it.
Yeah, good for you. So next question is very similar. We're going to go the other direction in time. We're going to set the time machine for 20 years out. You and I are having a beer talking about what our careers and our lives have kind of meant to us. What are you going to tell me you're most proud of, Curtis?
If we can bring manufacturing base back to the States and really, really make sure that the next generation's taken care of, and set on the right path, and there's, you know, geopolitical stability and the right relationships in place. Because I don't believe that it's an us versus them. I believe it's an us and them, right? I think that the right relationships need to be in place with manufacturing globally. I mean, we've been able to do it for years peacefully. It's just getting weaponized in the wrong way.
Hmm.
And I hate seeing it. Um, but we've also let it go too far, right? There's a push and a shove and a balance here. And I'd love to be part of the solution. And I don't know what that solution is yet, right? And I don't think any of us do, but it's not what it is today. And I'd love to look back at 20 years from now and say, hey, Wayne, we figured this thing out. We're there. Maybe we do, maybe we're not, but you know, if we can find a way to get there, a way to look back and say, you know, there's a way to work globally on manufacturing where everyone can work together in a holistic way that makes sense, it's peaceful, it's economically the most practical for everyone. It's the most streamlined. Every person in this world has the lowest cost of goods. Everyone has a job who needs one and can get what they need because of the work we did. I mean, not everyone, but best we can do. I'd
Yeah,
be
I hear
pretty
you.
damn proud.
Yeah, yeah, you should be. So I think that's an inspiring way to end our discussion because, and I guess I would say to you, I I think you're already doing it. I think you're on the road. And so, yeah, maybe you don't know what it looks like exactly, but there are few people who are on that road, and I'm glad to hear that you're on it. And I think it's moving in the right direction. So, big kudos to you and Nanotech Energy for that. So, Curtis, thanks so much for being on the program today. If people wanted to learn more about your business or about you, how would they reach you?
Hey, I'm an open door. Caller at nanotechenergy.com is my email. You can get me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active. Just reach out. Um, or you can reach out through our Nanotech website. Any of those approaches are um, viable, or I'm sure, reach out to Wayne and he'll get me.
Yeah, that's right. You can reach out to Driven to Lead podcast as well, which will help you get in touch if you need to. So I certainly intend to stay in touch with you, Curtis.
All right.
And I've already have a few ideas about others I work with who might be interested in talking with you. So I look forward to those conversations as well. Thanks again for being on the program. Have a great day.
Well, Wayne, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for being with us. If you like our conversations, please feel free to hit the subscribe and like buttons. And if you'd like to make comments, ask questions, or even explore being a guest on this program, you can reach out to us via email. It's wayne@greatroad.com. That's WAYNE at GR8ROAD.com. And until next time, always remember, the high road leads to a better place.